to see the Tampa Bay Traffic Safety website?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Show you as I always do. This is Anthony Chamont from Tyndall Oliver. The Tampa Bay Traffic Safety website. Dennis will kind of review this link again, but this is the location that you go to for all of the Safety Academy information. There is a link over on the left for Safety Academy under the Education tab that takes you to the Safety Academy link. We have information up here at the top, some announcements, the registration link if you want to share the registration with someone that's not currently registered. We have the upcoming webinars and their dates, and we have the information, the presentations, as well as the recordings from all of the past webinars are at this location. At the bottom of this, there is a document library that has the PDH request form for professional engineers if you're looking to get credit for these courses for 1 hour for each of these webinars. Today's presentation, as well as that PDH request form, is also available as a handout through the GoToWebinar app. You should see it in your handout section. Questions today, if you have any, type them into the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them as the presentation is going along. With that, I'll hand it over to Dennis for his introductions.
Good morning. This is Dennis Falloon, and I'm the District 7 Safety Academy Coordinator and Consultant, and I wanted to welcome you to the next to last, the 11th webinar for this year of 2015. And today's topic is Florida Strategic Highway Safety Plan, which will be presented by Joe Santos, PE. He's also the state safety engineer based in Tallahassee, FDOT headquarters. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Academy, as I do every time. And just want to stress that these webinars are available for free, and they're provided for you to provide you information regarding related safety issues to enhance your local safety programs. Began January 28, 2015. They run between 10 and 12. That's the window of time that we allocate. This is the third series of webinars, and the last one will end this year on December 2nd. And the length of a webinar in that 2-hour frame will depend on the complexity of the topic presented. And this is the website that you can register, and then the website that Anthony just had up on the screen. Go to TampaBayTrafficSafety.com and Safety Academy. Today, as I mentioned, we will have the Safety Highway Safety Plan, and the next one will be Lessons Learned, Experience and Roundabouts that the City of Tampa designed, constructed, and maintained. That'll be December 2nd. Wanted to mention that the topics that have been presented this year have been submitted for AICP-CM credits. And also wanted to mention in the news here that you get a notice in the beginning of the month, 2 weeks before the webinar, 2 days, and 2 hours before the webinar. And also want to mention that we are currently underway trying to finalize the 2016 District 7 Academy webinars and topics. And when we do, we'll definitely send out a notice so you can register for those courses, for those webinars. For those that are professional engineers, you can go in and request PDHs for these webinars, and this is the information for it. Also out on the web page that we've given you, that link has the form that you can fill out, and this is the link back to that Tampa Bay page. And with that, here's some of my contact information if you ever have a question. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joe. Anthony?
All right. I'm going to make sure put this in presentation mode and be sure that you are. There you go. Okay. You should be able to see the presentation slide just fine, correct?
Perfect.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Hi, my name is Joe Santos. I work for the Florida Department of Transportation. I work in the state safety office here, and my role as the DOT state safety engineer is to manage our highway safety improvement program, along with active involvement with our strategic highway safety plan, along with pretty much any and all related safety items that the agency is working on. So pretty wide gamut of activities here. The focus of the presentation today is Florida Strategic Highway Safety Plan. I've changed the format a little bit from previous presentations, where today I'm going to basically share with you a presentation that I had done back in August with our district secretaries and our DOT executive team, just on a performance of our strategic highway safety plan. I think the benefit here is that it will kind of show you not only the different emphasis areas of our strategic highway safety plan, but also how we're performing, not just as a state, but in each of our districts. I'd also like to take the time to thank each one of you for participating today. I think that this effort that District 7 is leading, I think, is excellent work. The reality, though, in all these different areas within safety, it takes so many people, both internal to DOT and external to DOT, to address safety. So initiatives like this, I think, is terrific, and it really helps us all understand the need and what actions are required to address safety here in Florida. All right. So as I mentioned, this is the first slide here, just driving down fatalities. Ultimately, our ultimate vision is 0 fatalities, so that lends itself to this image here. And it's also important to note that I'm going to be reporting performance on the fatalities and serious injuries, just as that's what our performance measure is. But ultimately, it's about the importance of each one, also, and the understanding that also it's about reaching that final goal of 0. So the way that the performance measure that we use for our strategic highway safety plan is that it's looking at our 5-year averages of fatalities and serious injuries. That's our general performance measure. There are a few that we're looking at 3 years based on available data, but I'll kind of speak to those briefly. What I'll do as part of this presentation too is kind of highlight each of the emphasis areas, and along with some general activities that we've been doing statewide on each of these areas. The other thing I'd like to kind of is kind of speak out to is on each of these EAs or emphasis areas. I'll be speaking out to the latest complete year we have of data, which is 2014. And kind of focusing on that fatal and serious injuries breakdown by district. All right. So it's important in regards to the Strategic Highway Safety Plan to kind of speak to the data. What this chart is showing basically is the 2012 plan that we have from the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, looked at the 06 through the 2006 to the 2010 data, crash data, and establish that as our baseline. And so that linear line you see here is just basically taking that 5% reduction of those fatal and serious injury crashes and establishing that as our performance goal. You'll see in the slides I'll be showing to you will kind of reference this linear line of 5% reduction in each of our emphasis areas. So our 4 E's, the other aspect of this on each of our emphasis areas is that we do have a primary E, or the 4 E's of safety, whether it be engineering, education, enforcement, or emergency medical services. So you'll see the specific logo here, whether it be a specific logo for each of the E's for each of the slides. All right, so we get into our listing of our emphasis areas. Aggressive driving, I mentioned that there are some that we're not using a 5-year average, but aggressive driving is one. 3-year average, which is enforcement, is the primary E, or the lead. I shouldn't say the primary E, the leading E for this aggressive driving. Intersection crashes and lane departure crashes, both of those. Engineering is the lead E. For vulnerable road users, which include our pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorcyclists, we've got education as the primary E. At-risk drivers, which are basically our teen drivers, 15 through 19, and our aging road user, which is 65 and up, primary E is education. Impaired driving, we're including suspected alcohol and suspected drug use. That's an enforcement lead E. Distracted driving, looking at 3-year averages for that. Primary E is education, and then an all-inclusive one is the data, traffic data. So big picture is looking at how are we performing statewide in each of these. This particular slide is showing on each of those emphasis areas how we're performing and kind of meeting that performance goal, at least looking at the 2010 through 2014 rates. So going back and using the 06 through 10 as our baseline, these are showing that whether or not we've met our performance goal. So the ones that are in green, aggressive driving, impaired and at-risk drivers, we've been exceeding our performance goal. But in the other areas, we have not. And along with at the very bottom, looking at basically all serious injuries and fatals, we have not. Now, we've been making progress in reducing the numbers. It's just this is a direct relationship with going back to that 06 through 10 baseline data. Okay. Pretty much the same, kind of the same information here, but a little different format. The blue triangles there are what the actual numbers are. So going back to the far left on the baseline, the 06 through 10, the 27,465 blue triangle there, that is what the actual numbers were in 06 through 10. Now, moving to the right, you'll see the red circle. That's what the performance goal would be. So that would be a 5% reduction. So that you see that's just a nice linear line moving into the outer years. And then you'll see like in 10 through 14, that at least for that particular this reporting period, we have not met the performance goal. And you can see that the general trend is showing that it's been a general decrease. You know, in the earlier reporting years, the 06 through 10, 7 through 11, 8 through 12, and 9 through 13, we've seen a decrease. And we've also seen a decrease in the 010 through 14, just not meeting that 5% performance goal. Just checking in, Anthony, are there any questions so far?
No, we don't have any questions in the chat at the moment.
Okay, all right. I'll just move ahead then. Also, I wanted to also note that the presentation are in the handout section. So if there's any need to maybe having a hard time viewing it, maybe on your screen, perhaps the handout might be a little bit easier to see also. All right. So now it gets to be a little busy. It's the same format from the earlier one, with the blue triangle being the actual numbers and the red circles being what the performance target are. And the other takeaway from this slide is really if the blue number is below the red number, that's kind of showing you visually that we've been meeting that performance goal. If the blue number is on top of the red number, basically that's saying we did not meet the goal. So even though we did not meet statewide our performance goal, there were some districts, such as District 7, that did meet our performance goal / reporting period. Now, what's also unique on this slide is now we've got a chance to see the distribution of crashes throughout the state. So where District 7 is very highly urban, which kind of substantiates the reason why we have the higher numbers in District 7, and compared to some of our less urban areas, our districts such as District 3 and District 2 and District 1. So the main takeaway from this is just showing how well we've been performing not only as a state but also in each district. Okay, so up to this point, it's just mostly just been statewide numbers, fatal and serious injuries. Now we're getting into our first emphasis area on pedestrians. So with the inset there, we see our primary E as education. Statewide numbers, we've seen a general leveling out of the last few years, and have not seen that 5% decrease in our performance measure. And when we look on each of the districts, it's like there have been some districts with minor decreases, but as a general trend, it's either leveled out or a slight increase. So this is also an opportunity to kind of showcase what efforts we've been doing, both statewide and at a district level, on addressing the pedestrian need. We do have a coalition in place, Alert Today, Alive Tomorrow coalition. It's championed by our District 1 Secretary Billy Hathaway. A lot of proactivity efforts on this, both at the education as noted there, but even amongst our engineering team and enforcement. A lot of activities trying to do our best to bring these numbers down. But I guess the reality of it is the numbers have leveled out, but over time we would look into the impact of what different improvements we're doing to bring the numbers down.
Joe, you can go back to your previous slide. There's a comment in the chat.
Sure.
The National Safety Council reports that deaths in Florida are up close to 29% from 2013 to 2015. We have, I guess, I don't know, maybe one slide back, average injuries, yeah. And yeah. It looks like we're showing a decrease. Any comment on the sort of the difference between the reporting criteria between the National Safety Council and what we're showing here?
I'm sorry, what was the comment again?
The National Safety Council reports that deaths in Florida are up about 29% between 2013 and 2015, and this seems to show that we have a decrease. Are we doing anything between 2013 and 2015?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the thing is that this is reporting what those 5-year averages are. I don't have a breakdown, at least right now, by year for that 2013 and 2014. So if we're comparing the 5-year averages, this is what I'm reporting out to, and for both the fatalities and serious injuries.
Oh, interesting. So we may actually have a slight increase now, but we're not seeing it in this graph because this is reporting a 5-year rolling average.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
I think that answers that question.
Yeah. And I think the previous one study was just kind of focusing on fatalities. It's one of the challenges in reporting out nationally is there is no consistent serious injury definition. So many times when we're comparing ourselves with other states on the trends, we might be looking at fatalities, but for our strategic highway safety plan, we're looking at for both serious injuries and fatalities. Was there anything else?
No, that was it. I think that answers that question. This is a 5-year rolling average of incapacitating injury as well as fatals, and the National Safety Council is showing year by year fatalities.
Right. Okay. So along with pedestrians as a vulnerable road user component, we've actually seen on the bicyclists an increase in the numbers over the reporting periods, and that is a fairly consistent trend in each of our districts. Once again, we've been doing a lot of effort on the enforcement and education on bicyclists. We have been moving forward with some statewide initiatives that kind of encompass, on the engineering side, both the pedestrian and bicyclists, with such areas as our complete streets and some of our lighting initiatives here in Florida. We've also been recently purchased some data to support the need for knowing where our bicyclists and pedestrians/runners are. So one of the data that's been a challenge within the state, we've recently purchased what we call Strava data. With the Strava data, Strava is an application you can install on a smartphone for those that want to track their mileage and for distance for training purposes. Well, what Strava does is then package that data in a GIS format. DOT purchased that statewide data recently and has provided that to folks. So if you're hearing about that for the first time and you're interested in more information, my contact info is at the end of the presentation, and I can forward some information to you on that. Motorcyclists also is one of our vulnerable road users. Here we have seen a general decline in the 5-year averages, although above the performance goal. I think there's still value in reporting out that there has been a decrease in the numbers. Part of the reason for the reduction in the numbers is like the Alert Today, Alive Tomorrow campaign that addresses bike ped. We also have a motorcycle coalition. They have many campaigns out there, one of which is called Ride Smart, Drink and Ride or Lose. Look Twice campaign. They also have sport bike challenges and programs where they encourage those sport bikes to, rather than race on the road, they have established events at tracks where they can have these folks race and such. So contribute a lot of the efforts to the motorcycle coalition on the motorcycle emphasis area. Intersections. Primary on intersections, the primary E is engineering. For this particular one, we do see a general decrease over the years, and we've seen some decreases in each of the districts. They see one increase in District 5 and such, but generally we see a general decrease in each of our districts. The one thing I would like to kind of mention on the intersections is that in the previous sets, when we talk about fatal and serious injuries crashes, the numbers are relatively low compared to the intersection numbers. So you're going to see the same kind of trend for both intersection and lane departure. And just also I wanted to report out that these numbers are reporting to both the local and state roads. I believe I have a slide at the end that kind of shows that distribution between state and local. Right now we do not have an intersection coalition in place. I do anticipate over the upcoming year of establishing one. We're just kind of going through some initial planning stages on that effort. Actually, we're looking at combining intersection and lane departure as a combined engineering focus. But on the intersection, some of the things we've been doing statewide, at least within our DOT area, that we contribute to the reduction is the systemic approaches through our design guidance. For example, one signal ahead per lane, pedestrian countdowns, the back plates for our signals. These are all, at least on the state system, we are doing systemically. And I believe that there's a lot of added safety benefit to these particular improvements. So lane departure and other engineering. On this particular one, we have seen a slight decrease, but with that slight decrease, we are now not meeting our performance goal for this lane departure area. This is the first time that this is reporting period, as can be shown here, where we've kind of leveled out on the lane departure issue, and we've seen some decreases in the district and some increases. District 7, I'll tell you, has really stood out with much of their proactivity in working with their locals on lane departure. This last reporting period is leveling out, slight decrease, but it's just really amazing the active work that District 7's been doing in reducing the lane departure crashes. Moving into our another area of our vulnerable road users, the aging road user, drivers age 65 and over. It's leveled out somewhat over the last few years. In essence, we have not been meeting our performance goal. We have seen some general increases in each of the districts, but overall not meeting the goal. We have in place a Safe Mobility for Life coalition. Many active partners are included in that coalition, addressing it primarily with an education component. Gail Hawley from our traffic ops section here within DOT has the lead with that effort. So moving into our teen drivers, we've definitely seen a substantial decrease in the numbers where we've been exceeding our performance goal, and it's been fairly consistent. Well, it has been definitely consistent in each of our districts. We attribute a lot of this decreases with our many partnerships, of which we do have a coalition, a teen driving coalition, Students Against Drunk Driving, police chiefs, many more partnerships involved in huge impact because of this, involving both internal and external partners in addressing the teen driving challenge. All right, so now we're getting into on the impaired driving. We've got where enforcement is taking the lead. Much of where we have been exceeding our performance goal statewide in each of the reporting periods, including the most recent, and we see a general trend in each of our districts on this also. Much of the contribution to reducing the numbers, a lot of it's in place because of advertising that we're doing throughout the state. One of them is regarding the drive sober, get pulled over. The other aspect of this effort is that we've been combating impaired driving through sub-grants, through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration funds that we receive here in our office. Most of this sub-grant is focused on overtime enforcement. So once again, contribute much of those efforts to the reduction with the impaired driving. One of the important aspects of the and reporting out is with on the aggressive and distracted driving, and the reasons why we're just reporting out 3 years on this is because there are some pretty substantial changes to our crash report in 2011, and you can see that when it comes down to aggressive driving and distracted driving, the numbers here substantially changed between the 2010 and 2011. So because of that, rather than going out those 5 years, we're looking at the 3-year range to focus as a baseline. So, you know, we talked about the difference kind of like in the numbers on the lane departure and intersection. You know, we're talking, in the thousands plus. Here we're talking about, hundreds, between, 30 to 50 distribution by each district. So the numbers are really kind of, the data is one challenge with we're talking about aggressive driving. So at least for this reporting period, we're showing a pretty substantial a decrease in the most recent reporting year. We've been meeting our performance goal, but with there's going to take some time before it really tells the right story and how we're performing in each of our districts. Similar on distracted, we have seen a definitely increase over the reporting year, but because of the small sample size and the short time frame, it's hard to really gauge the real impact on distracted and aggressive driving. The other important part is a lot of the data, we are relying on the enforcement folks who's filling out the crash report to really populate the data to tell the story. So a lot of this is also looking at how we're reporting and how the data is being collected from our enforcement. So I mentioned, so that really kind of completes the main part of the presentation on the kind of discussion about each of the emphasis areas of our strategic highway safety plan, along with performance in each of our, both statewide and each of our districts. I just think that these follow-up 2 slides are just kind of showing, as we're looking at addressing the safety component on both local and state, I thought it was important, at least on like intersection and lane departures, kind of speaking to you the order of magnitude between local and state. So on the intersections, when we start looking at the inventory, we're looking at nearly 90% of our intersections on local roads and almost a little over 10% on our state highway system. When we start looking at the crashes on the system, we're looking at a pretty substantial number, a little over 61% on state highway system and nearly 40% on local. So I guess the main takeaway from this is as we're working through improvements at intersections to bring these numbers down, we really need to be looking at both state highway system and local. The challenge, though, from this takeaway too, is that we have a substantial inventory of local and a fairly high number, nearly 40% local. So the crashes are really scattered much more on the local level, so it just makes it a challenge to kind of work through. All right, the same on the local versus state system on the lane departure. Here we're seeing about a 50-50 on the crashes and about the same distribution of centerline miles between local maintained and state maintained. So main takeaway from this slide basically is just kind of a focusing on both, to bring the numbers down, a focus on both the local and the state highway system. So really that completes my session. I know on your earlier slide you said it needed to be a minimum of an hour, but that's, if I were to share, I think the amount of time I gave to the topics should be good enough. Anthony or Dennis, any comments?
We'll give folks a few minutes here. If there's anybody that has questions, they can type them into the chat. It's really interesting to see those graphs, and knowing that the efforts of all the safety professionals throughout the state are actually, being quantified in a way and measured and tracked, and with the 5-year rolling averages and seeing which districts are doing well and others. It would be I don't know if it's an effort that you're undertaking or not. I would be really interested to know. I don't know if you happen to know. There are some districts and some counties that are doing better than others in different of the strategic highway safety plans. I would be really interested to know, one district that's doing exceptionally well in one area, what is it that they're doing?
Yeah.
Specifically, is it happening by chance? Is it that they're safety doesn't happen by accident typically. So do they have a safety engineer in that district that's focused on, if they have a good high-risk rural road project, are they focusing on those off-system, what is it that they're focusing on? Do you have,
yeah. Are
you guys looking at specifically what programs are working and what programs are not, or is that kind of managed at the district level?
Well, we receive at the central office level, we receive updates from the districts as far as their level of activity on different areas of our strategic highway safety plan, and traditionally would report out on specific activities that they're doing for that particular reporting quarter. I don't have my notes handy on kind of reporting out over the last year, but if there's an interest in that, we can definitely maybe follow up with another session on just kind of maybe focus activities just in that regard.
Yeah, I'd love that as a follow-up. Maybe in 2016 or whatnot, as a follow-up presentation to know specific, all the safety projects are input still into the crash program, right? And that's where part of where the benefit cost and the crash modification factors come from.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like what projects correlate between the districts that are showing a decrease in the strategic highway plan versus the project being input into the crash program like, this project is fantastic. Everyone else that isn't showing the same measures, find locations to do this project. And then the opposite of that is also identify maybe, but through trial and error. Maybe there's a particular project type that we were expecting a very high benefit cost, and it ended up not having the reduction. So it's, let's not spend the safety funds on those types of projects. I think that would be a very worthwhile effort.
Yeah. The activity you're kind of speaking to, Anthony, is pretty clean for like an engineering type countermeasure.
True. Where
if you're addressing a particular crash type and you're putting out a countermeasure to address that particular crash type, then at least your best effort would be to contribute the reduction in those crashes from that particular countermeasure. Where it gets a little bit harder to evaluate is when we're talking about the educational side and even sometimes on the enforcement side. So that direct relationship, and the other part is over time. So yeah, if we go through that, we want to be sure we're speaking to the right story,
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, maybe there's a district that has a particularly strong CTST and is using the funds for additional enforcement through the safety grants that you guys offer, and that district is showing a decrease in their impaired driving crashes. It's so how did they do that? To find out, just to educate other districts on how they can achieve the same reductions.
Yep, there's definitely a lot of opportunity to kind of tell that story. Absolutely.
This is Dennis. I wanted to make a comment. One of your slides, you were talking about Strava. Just so everybody knows, we have a topic for 2016 we're working on. Right now, the title is Using the Strava Application to Make Roads Safer and More Convenient for Cyclists. That's not the final wording of it, but that is being considered for 2016 Safety Academy presentation webinar on Strava.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see, because for the first time we'll be able to normalize bike crashes versus their volume, which we've never been able to do, and pedestrian volumes as well. So that'll be. Well,
let me be clear. Yeah, let me be clear. I guess the Strava data is not is more like a stopgap than telling that complete picture.
Correct.
What Strava helps us with is to kind of make a more informed decision on an awareness of where cyclists are riding, at least those that have the app. And ultimately, it's about, over time that data will get better, but this is kind of like a starting point. Not only would the Strava data get better with more users, but then the agency will likely put better counting tools, in place, so you actually don't, have the actual counts. But so I don't look at it as an end all. I just look at Strava as kind of like one tool in our toolbox to, kind of get to the global issue of understanding, one, where our bike ped folks, and then what can we do to address accommodating their needs so they can safely use the system.
Yeah, it's a subset of cyclists for sure. I mean, the Strava users are what I call spandex riders. The riding enthusiasts that kind of go out for exercise. Not,
right.
You'd have to correlate transit data if you're looking at the kind of the captive cyclists that are using bicycles as their mode of transportation as opposed to going around to exercise. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's a snapshot of part of the cyclists.
Right.
We have a couple questions in the chat. There is a question about signal timing changes. Have you been able to determine yet if the maintained signal timing changes has contributed to a reduction, to a reduced intersection crashes, or is it too early?
I think that there's a relationship with updating, with reduction in crashes and signal timing changes. I'm careful in that because we're talking about much of the work that I'm involved with on the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. The focus is the serious injury crashes, fatalities and serious injury crashes. It's when we talk about signal timing, many times we might be talking about improved progression on a corridor, to decrease delay. Could be one component. You could have another component where you might have an issue with multiple rear-end collisions or minor injury severity, minor damage. There would be an added benefit to that, but I think there's a safety component. It's just capturing the true reduction in those fatal and serious injury crashes from a signal retiming effort.
There's a follow-up to that topic.
Yeah.
What they were referring to was the increased red and yellow times that were mandated? Is that?
I can't. I don't have the data to speak to that right now. Yeah, I haven't been involved with that analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question, one regarding Safety Edge. Please speak about the Safety Edge countermeasure in regards to adoption in Florida. Are there any results, and has it been implemented on any local roads, non-state highway system, using FDOT funds?
Okay, the concept of Safety Edge, basically it's during a paving operation on the edge of the shoulder, they'll do like a 40-degree taper on the asphalt there to so if there was a lane departure crash or a lane departure issue where a vehicle leaves the roadway, if they want to come back on the roadway, that drop off may cause them to overcorrect themselves and go on to the adjacent lane. So that's the concept with the Safety Edge. In regards to Florida DOT, we do have a. To answer the last question, I'm not aware of any federal, at least within the state, federal funds on doing Safety Edge projects like on a state road. I am aware of Safety Edge being some counties doing Safety Edge as part of their resurfacing program. So I guess within FDOT, within our state highway system, we have in place on our maintenance side, we have the paved shoulders. So when we have the paved shoulders, and we're looking at just about 1.5 inches of asphalt on that outside edge, we have to ask the question, at least for on our DOT roads where we have a paved shoulder, it just, at least in Florida, it just doesn't seem to be a good fit. Now, on a local agency's perspective, if they don't have a paved shoulder and they have the drop off, then and they've got a thicker thickness of asphalt, then it would make more sense in that regard. So we are teaming up with the LTAP, Local Technical Assistance Program, efforts to do a Safety Edge workshop first week in December, and if anybody's interested in participating in that workshop, definitely let me know and we'll assign you up. But I hope that answers the question in regards to the Safety Edge.
Are there any other ones? Questions?
I'm not seeing any other questions.
Okay.
With that, I suppose we can end the recording and remain on the line for a few minutes in case there's any stragglers or anybody else has any follow-ups. This was a nice, informative webinar, Joe. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Joe.